On this day in history, we remember the remarkable individuals who shaped our world. Welcome to Who Died Today in History, where we honor their legacies. From artists to leaders, their impact lives on. If you find their stories meaningful, like, subscribe, and hit the bell to stay connected.
Thank you to all our amazing channel members for your generous support.
Colleen Dewhurst, often hailed as the Queen of American Theater, died on August 22, 1991, at the age of 67. Her passing came after a battle with cervical cancer, a natural yet devastating end that reflected the silent challenges many women of her generation faced with health issues that were still shrouded in stigma and limited by less advanced medical treatments. Unlike the sudden or violent deaths that often define cultural legends, Dewhurst's passing was quiet, dignified, and deeply connected to her personal choice to live authentically to the end. She famously declined aggressive treatment, preferring quality of life over prolonged suffering, a decision that resonated with her lifelong independence and strength of character. Her death was not only a personal loss, but a profound moment for American stage and screen. As a two-time Tony Award winner and four-time Emmy recipient, Dewhurst embodied the golden age of mid-20th century theater, commanding the stage with her powerful presence in works by Eugene O'Neill, Edward Albee, and Shakespeare. Her passing marked the end of an era when live theater occupied a central role in American cultural life, bridging the gap between high art and accessible storytelling. The immediate consequence was a wave of tributes from the artistic community, with many recognizing that a towering figure in American performance had left a void that would be difficult to fill. In death, Dewhurst's legacy was amplified. She came to symbolize not just the excellence of her craft, but the endurance of theater itself, in an age increasingly dominated by film and television. Her final work, including her role as Marilla Cuthbert in Anne of Green Gables, ensured that she was remembered by mainstream audiences as well as theater-goers, broadening her cultural footprint. Dewhurst's passing reveals humanity's enduring respect for art as a means of immortality. While illness silenced her body, her performances continue to live on in recordings, literature, and the memories of those who witnessed her on stage. We immortalize figures like Dewhurst not through myth-making but through the preservation of their craft. A reminder that mortality does not erase greatness, but often crystallizes it. In remembering her, we see how art allows humanity to transcend death, carrying forward the voices of those who once lit the stage with brilliance. Toto Cutugno, the Italian singer-songwriter who became an emblem of European pop music, died on August 22, 2023, at the age of 80 after a long illness. His death was natural, the culmination of years of health struggles, and it reflected not only the human inevitability of aging, but also the passing of an era in popular music. In many ways, Cutugno's death symbolized the fading of a generation of artists whose songs once unified nations across linguistic and cultural boundaries. Cutugno's career was marked by timeless melodies that blended romantic lyricism with a distinctly Italian sensibility. His most famous song, L'Italiano, became an anthem not only for Italians but for the global diaspora, celebrating national identity with pride and warmth. When news of his death broke, the immediate response in Italy was one of collective mourning, as fans and cultural figures paid tribute to an artist who had embodied a sense of national character through music. His passing resonated particularly strongly in Europe, where his Eurovision Song Contest victory in 1990 with Insieme 1992 captured the optimism of a continent on the verge of greater unity. The song's theme of European integration made him more than just an entertainer. It made him a cultural voice for a historical moment. In death, Cutugno's legacy was amplified. His songs were revisited as not merely entertainment, but as cultural artifacts that captured the values and aspirations of their era. His passing invited reflection on how music functions as a vehicle for identity and memory, transcending borders in ways politics often cannot. For Italians in particular, his work reinforced the idea that art can crystallize a collective sense of self, even long after the artist is gone. The story of Koutugno's death and remembrance reveals humanity's deep need to preserve the voices that have given shape to our identities. Mortality inevitably claims even the brightest stars, yet through recordings, performances, and tributes, artists like Koutugno achieve a form of immortality. His memory is enshrined not only in the canon of Italian music, but also in the broader cultural narrative of Europe. We immortalize such figures by allowing their art to live on, ensuring that their voices continue to speak to future generations about love, unity, and the unshakable human desire for connection. Huey P. Newton, co-founder of the Black Panther Party, met a violent end on August 22, 1989, when he was fatally shot in Oakland, California, at the age of 47. His death, by gunfire in the very community where he had once been celebrated and vilified in equal measure, starkly symbolized the turbulence of his era. Newton had dedicated much of his life to challenging systemic racism, police brutality, and poverty. But by the late 1970s and 1980s, his personal struggles with addiction and legal troubles mirrored the broader disillusionment many activists faced after the decline of 1960s radical movements. His violent death underscored the fragility of revolutionary ideals when confronted with the social crises that continued to plague urban America. The immediate aftermath of Newton's death was marked by mourning within activist circles, but also controversy. Some viewed him as a martyr for Black liberation, a man who had paid the ultimate price in his fight against oppression. Others, particularly critics of the Black Panther Party, saw his end as tragic but inevitable, pointing to his personal demons and the Panther's decline. Yet, his death undeniably forced a reconsideration of his legacy. At a time when the civil rights movement was transitioning into new forms of activism, Newton's passing reminded the public of the cost of resistance, both on the personal and collective level. Newton's death amplified his legend in ways his later life had not. The revolutionary imagery of the Black Panther Party, their free breakfast programs, community clinics, and armed patrols, was remembered more vividly after his violent end. His image became less about personal controversy and more about the enduring fight for justice. His story inspired later generations of activists, including those in the movements for prison reform and Black Lives Matter, who saw in Newton both a cautionary tale and a source of strength. Reflecting on Newton's death reveals how humanity often elevates individuals whose lives and struggles expose the inequities of their times. Mortality transforms their stories into symbols, whether of hope, warning, or inspiration. Newton is immortalized not only in biographies and documentaries, but also in the continued work of activists who trace their lineage back to his revolutionary ideals. In this way, his violent end became part of a larger narrative about power, resistance, and memory, demonstrating that while individuals perish, the ideas they ignite endure far beyond their lifetimes. Nickolas Ashford, one half of the legendary songwriting and performing duo Ashford and Simpson, passed away on August 22, 2011, in New York City at the age of 70 due to complications from throat cancer. His death was natural, the result of illness, yet its circumstances symbolized the fragility of even the most vibrant artistic voices. For decades, Ashford's smooth tenor, creative genius, and partnership with Valerie Simpson had shaped the soundtrack of modern soul and R&B. His passing reflected not only the inevitability of mortality, but also the vulnerability of the human body, even in someone whose voice had once seemed immortal. The immediate consequences of his death were heartfelt tributes from across the music industry. Artists such as Diana Ross, Chaka Khan, and many others who had benefited from his songwriting, classics like Ain't No Mountain High Enough and You're All I Need to Get By, spoke of his influence. Fans worldwide mourned the loss of a man whose lyrics had defined themes of love, resilience, and unity. At a time when popular music was increasingly shaped by digital sounds and fleeting trends, Ashford's death reminded listeners of the enduring power of soul music and the human voice as instruments of connection. Ashford's death amplified his legend rather than dimmed it. While he and Simpson had already been honored during their lifetimes, his passing cemented their work as part of the canon of American music. The fact that his songs continued to inspire covers, remixes, and performances after his death reflected the timelessness of his artistry. Moreover, his story highlighted the significance of creative partnerships. His and Simpson's 50-year collaboration stood as a testament to the possibility of sustaining love and artistry in equal measure. In a broader sense, Ashford's death reminds us of how humanity uses memory and art to transcend mortality. While his voice is gone, his words and melodies remain alive, carried forward in countless performances, films, and personal moments of listeners. Through commemoration, whether in tributes, reissues of classic albums, or the preservation of his and Simpson's legacy in music history, we transform loss into continuity. Ashford's departure illustrates how mortality underscores the urgency of artistic creation, while memory ensures that the most resonant voices never fully fade. In this way, he remains immortal, not in body, but in song. Mickey Grant, a trailblazing composer, lyricist, actress, and singer, passed away at the age of 92. Her death was natural, the quiet closing of a life spent breaking barriers on stage and in song. Grant's passing reflected the values of her era in a profound way. She had lived through the civil rights movement and the struggle for greater representation in the arts, embodying the resilience and creative determination of a generation that sought to transform culture through talent and activism. The immediate consequences of her death were felt most strongly in the Broadway and African American artistic communities. Tributes poured in from theater organizations, actors, and playwrights who recognized her pioneering role in shaping opportunities for Black artists. Grant was the first woman, and one of the first African Americans, to both write the music and lyrics for a Broadway production, Don't Bother Me, I Can't Cope, 1972, a show that directly confronted themes of Black identity, social justice, and empowerment. Her death reminded audiences and fellow artists of the immense progress achieved through individuals who dared to center marginalized voices, even when the mainstream resisted. Rather than diminishing her presence, her passing amplified her legacy. Grant's work began to be revisited with renewed appreciation, underscoring her contributions to a more inclusive American stage. Much like Lorraine Hansberry and other cultural figures who left indelible marks on the arts, Grant's achievements became part of a broader narrative about representation and the responsibility of art to reflect society. Her ability to infuse music with activism and joy with protest positioned her as both an artist and a chronicler of her people's struggles and triumphs. Her death, like so many of history's cultural milestones, reveals humanity's complex relationship with mortality and memory. Though her voice was stilled, her songs continue to echo in community theaters, classrooms, and the memories of those who first heard her revolutionary productions. Through commemoration, whether in theater revivals, academic studies, or tributes within the African American arts community, Mickey Grant's life becomes immortalized. This reflects a universal truth. While mortality defines human existence, art allows us to transcend time. By remembering her not just as a performer but as a pioneer, we affirm the enduring power of creativity to carry values, struggles, and dreams into the future. Imperial Argentina, born Magdalena Naile del Rio in 1910, was one of Spain's most iconic performers of the 20th century. She passed away on August 22, 2003, at the age of 92, from natural causes. Her death marked the close of an era that had witnessed dramatic shifts in Spain's political and cultural identity. As a singer and actress who rose to fame in the 1930s, Argentina's career spanned fascism, exile, and eventual return to prominence. Her passing symbolized not only the fading of the golden age of Spanish cinema, but also the resilience of art through turbulent political landscapes. Her death prompted a wave of reflection across Spain and Latin America, where she had also cultivated a significant following. The immediate response was one of reverence. She was remembered as a symbol of Spain's artistic heritage, celebrated for her films like Morena Clara and her work with influential directors such as Florian Rey. Yet, her legacy was also complicated by her associations with political regimes, particularly her performances in Nazi Germany during the 1940s. While she later distanced herself from political controversy, her career remained a reminder of how art and politics are often intertwined, and how artists of her era were caught between personal ambition and the demands of authoritarian governments. Her death did not shift history in the political sense, but it did amplify her legend in cultural memory. She came to represent the glamour and contradictions of pre- and post-war Spain, a woman whose voice and presence captivated audiences, yet whose choices reflected the pressures of survival and success in fraught times. Much like other stars of early cinema, her passing rekindled interest in her films, ensuring that younger generations could encounter her artistry through restored footage and archival tributes. The story of Imperial Argentina's death and legacy highlights how humanity grapples with mortality, power, and remembrance. Figures like her remind us that while political contexts may tarnish reputations, artistic contributions often outlast controversy. Memory, shaped through film festivals, documentaries, and cultural retrospectives, transforms performers into symbols of both their triumphs and contradictions. In immortalizing Imperial Argentina, we recognize that art is not only entertainment but also a vessel carrying history, identity, and the complicated truths of the eras it emerges from. Sven, better known as one half of the famous same-sex penguin couple Sven and Magic, became an unexpected global icon for both wildlife conservation and broader cultural conversations about love, family, and acceptance. A Gentoo penguin residing at the Sea Life Sydney Aquarium in Australia, Sven's life was marked not by fame from birth, but by a touching and highly publicized partnership. Alongside his mate, Magic, Sven helped raise a chick, aptly nicknamed Svenjic, after the aquarium staff entrusted the pair with an egg. Their success at nurturing the chick challenged traditional perceptions of animal behavior and inspired many around the world. When Sven eventually passed away, from natural causes linked to the health challenges many penguins face in captivity and in the wild, the news resonated far beyond the aquarium walls. Unlike the sudden deaths of political leaders or entertainers, Sven's passing invited reflection on themes of care, family, and how humanity projects its own values onto the natural world. His story mirrored the challenges of the early 21st century, an era deeply engaged with debates on diversity, inclusion, and the redefinition of family. That a penguin could symbolize these values speaks to the power of narrative in shaping public consciousness. The immediate consequence of his death was an outpouring of tributes, particularly online, where countless people expressed gratitude for the joy and symbolism Sven had brought into their lives. In conservation circles, his passing highlighted the fragility of penguin populations facing climate change, overfishing, and habitat loss. Thus, Sven's story became both a celebration of love and a reminder of urgent environmental challenges. Did his death amplify his legend? In many ways, yes. Sven and Magic had already achieved cultural immortality, But Sven's passing solidified his place as more than just an aquarium attraction. He became a symbol of resilience, love against odds, and humanity's deep emotional connection to animals. Sven's legacy reveals much about our relationship with mortality, power, and memory. We immortalize not only humans but also animals whose lives reflect our hopes and values. Through media tributes, children's books, and conservation campaigns, figures like Sven remind us that memory is a form of power, the ability to shape how lives, no matter how small, are remembered and celebrated. In honoring Sven, humanity affirms its desire to find meaning, compassion, and connection across species lines.